They're categorically different things. Only one of those is a First Amendment violation.
That's your opinion, and that's totally okay. I don't think that's an insane opinion. I can see where you're coming from. That's problematic. Yeah, duh.
I'm not asking if it's problematic. Is it a violation of the First Amendment?
In the spirit of the First Amendment, yeah, in my opinion, it is.
The spirit of the First... like the legitimacy of the opinion.
Sure, it's legitimate because it's my opinion, and if you don't think it's legitimate, you don't have to think it's legitimate.
Okay, I don't understand why we hit this bedrock where you refuse to like engage further. Do you disagree that Donald Trump is destroying America?
Yeah, I disagree that he's personally destroying the country.
Sure, what if I clarify and say his administration?
I mean, I think that probably all of the administrations of the last 2 to 3 decades have been doing it, but it kind of seems like you're trying to make the case that he individually is worse than other people or something of that nature.
The case I'm making is that electing him as president was catastrophic, and that includes people he's appointed to cabinet positions as well as orders that he gives personally.
Okay. Yeah. So what would he be doing that is destroying the country?
I think destroying free speech rights is one of the biggest ones, where people have literally been put in handcuffs for expressing opinions he doesn't like. I think eliminating due process. I don't know if you want to go one by one or.
Sure.
I can give you 10 points, or we can go point at a time. I don't want to overwhelm you with like 10 different things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that we could go point at a time, although, I would say this. Since you have his name in the title, I'm looking for things that are exclusive to him. So, for instance, like with free speech, that's kind of a line that's already been crossed. So I don't think it is.
Who crossed that line before?
Well, we have the Twitter files with the Biden administration.
I just want to clarify what line we're talking about is like people being put in handcuffs for expressing an opinion. That never happened under Biden. Biden making a request to Twitter, half of which were rejected, is not really involving free speech.
Yeah, but systematically silencing free speech on an open platform where people are supposed to be allowed to discuss these kinds of things, that would be hindering free speech. So I'm not saying that one is worse than the other. Maybe arresting someone for their speech would be a worse offense. But if you're going to sit here and legitimately say,
because Twitter is a private platform, and this idea that the Biden administration was like going in and banning people, they made requests to social media companies. Many of these requests were rejected and denied, so there was no government.
Just them asking is crossing the line in the first place.
I mean, my take on this is they should ask transparently. Like, if there's any communication, it should be public. I don't think it's a free speech violation, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with you, and I would disagree with you on the premise that companies like X and companies like Facebook, they enjoy liability protections, meaning when people go on there and they say insanely offensive things or they say things that are wrong, the social media company themselves, they can't be held liable for what somebody says. That's exactly correct, yeah. So if you're a platform in the United States, I think within reason, free speech should exist. And so if you're not going to uphold free speech, then you should be registered as a publisher. And so the alternative here, or the issue is that the federal government is reaching out to a platform and they don't even have medical data, or they don't even have actual scientific evidence to support what they're asking people to stop saying. And so then they're shadow banning people, they're removing people's posts, they're removing their right.
Well, first of all, again, I want to be clear here that like, if the government was forcing Twitter to do this, then I think you'd have a point. The fact that Twitter was allowed to say no, Meta was allowed to say no, I think removes the First Amendment from this. Now, there's a separate conversation there on like, do you like that? I think it should be transparent. But the government saying, hey, man, can you remove like this tweet saying that like hydroxychloroquine will cure COVID because it's like objectively not true, and there's like a 50-50 shot Twitter says no. There's a conversation to be had there about transparency maybe, but not about the First Amendment. And I think this
I think that you should do a little bit more research into what Mark Zuckerberg has said.
I've done a lot of research into it.
Yeah, great. So if you watch his interviews, he
with Rogan
says in very plain English that they were not like physically forced at gunpoint or anything, but they were certainly coerced. They were.
I don't believe Mark Zuckerberg
essentially
when he
like
says
threatened,
and I can explain why I don't believe him. Sure. Is that Mark Zuckerberg?
So you believe the billionaire company CEO?
I can explain to you why I don't believe him. I have a
Got
very
it.
specific reason for it. Mark Zuckerberg
Sure.
before was like the fact check guy. People used to hate him on the right for like suppressing people. And then Trump gives a statement saying that he should be jailed. And then all of a sudden Mark Zuckerberg says, we're getting rid of fact checking actually. And Biden was actually really, really bad. I hate Biden. And then they, don't take my word for it, they asked Trump at a press conference, hey, do you think that Zuckerberg is being nice to you now because you threatened to arrest him? And Trump was like, yeah, I think that's why he's doing it.
Sure. So, like, you're totally within your rights to say, hey, this is what I believe and that's why I believe it. But I'm just telling you, as somebody who, like, my individual opinion is that if you're going to sit here and say that Trump is destroying America because he's attacking free speech or he's threatening some form of free speech, if you seriously look at what happened with the files for Facebook and with Twitter,
Yeah.
and you say, oh, that's not a problem, that doesn't threaten free speech at all, then I really don't think
Those
that
are
it's
two
a
different
conversation I
questions.
can have with
So I
you. So
think
maybe a different point.
those are two different questions. I think any sort of communication between the government and private companies of that nature should be made public and transparent. So that's a problem, I suppose. But that's not just constitutionally, legally speaking, not a free speech issue. Like that wouldn't land in any court. There's no government compulsion on the basis of viewpoint. Like
Yeah,
you
sure.
just could
So,
not take
okay,
that to
so
a
there,
court.
yeah, okay. So it's like there's not government compulsion, but you have the acting administration, you have the highest executive power in the land asking you to do something. If you, I mean, I don't think that,
And just to be
I
clear,
don't
that
think the free
line of
speech thing is a
communication was
good
opened
point
up
for
under
either of
Trump
us.
in his first term. If you read the Twitter files, this began in like 2020 with the Trump administration.
Yeah, sure. I'm not saying that it didn't. I'm just saying that the
I understand
files that came out against the Biden administration and Facebook, they're unforgivably bad in terms of free speech. So if you don't believe that has
Sure.
anything to,
Here's the
we should
argument I would
do a
make,
different
right?
point.
Is like, I don't think it's not an issue. I just think it
You're not
pales
going to
in-
convince me on this point, so we should just move to a different
I
point.
understand that. I just want to finish my argument here. I'm not making the
Yeah.
argument that the government shouldn't have been transparent there, but this is just pales in comparison to people being arrested for expressing opinions. And if you want to make the case that actually, the door was already opened, then Trump opened the door because all the channels of communication that were used by the Biden admin were opened by the Trump admin. And unlike the Biden admin who was saying, hey, this is like medical disinformation, the Trump admin was telling Twitter, hey, take down this tweet of Chrissy Teigen calling me a pussy ass bitch. Take this tweet down because it's insulting to the president. So anytime the president is leveraging power for his own personal gain, that even takes it a step above. And again, what I would say is even if I granted your premise, which I don't grant it, but even if I did, this is a free speech violation, then Trump one and Biden one would cancel each other out. And then you have a whole different level where people are being arrested, dragged away from their homes for expressing an opinion. And this isn't just my conjecture or your conjecture as people on the internet. This is a judge that said that they're violating the First Amendment.
Sure.
That just
Yeah.
holds
So
more
just next
water.
point. Yeah. Next point.
How it's hard for me to think you're not like ideologically captured if you can't see that.
I would consider myself completely unideologically captured. I mean, one, I don't really think that any of the administrations of the last 20 years have been particularly good in terms of individual liberties.
Like no one's
performance
arrested
for the
someone
lower and
for
middle
saying
income
words.
class. Yeah, but you have other pretty egregious examples. I mean, you
Why
have
are we pivoting
Obama.
from that though? That's kind of fucking insane that people were arrested for expressing opinions. It's like unprecedented.
Well, the other part too is I haven't really been able to finish too many of my thoughts because you're interrupting. So I'd prefer to just go
I
to the
just
next
like to
one.
stay on the topic we're on. That's why I interrupt.
Yeah, and I already told you my point and that I disagree with you. Because if you've read the Facebook files and you've read the emails between the administration and Facebook, and you think that all of those are completely just, these are people trying to do good, this has nothing to do with
I didn't say
stomping
that.
free speech or essentially stopping conversation that is,
You don't have to strawman me.
how is that a straw man? I'm not sure
I
what you're
never said
talking
this
about.
is all good and all these emails are great. I said I want transparency because I think these things should have oversight. I just don't think it's a free speech question. And
Okay, so you think it was an issue or you don't think it's an issue?
I think it was a minor issue.
Okay, and you don't think that the federal government reaching out to the platforms that people use for social media in the company and talking about you have to remove this, you have to remove this, if people say this, they can't say this, you don't think that's a freedom of speech issue?
No, because they didn't say you have to do anything.
Okay, yeah, then we just, okay,
There was no
so
compulsion.
I respect your opinion. I just disagree
This
on
is
this
just
point.
not a
So
matter
what
of
would your next
opinion. It's a
point be?
matter of descriptive reality. Like, was anyone punished for not obliging with these requests?
And so this is where I really differ from people like me and you, or people like you. I personally think that it's okay if you view it differently than me. But
So do
now you've
I.
taken it the next step and say, no, you don't, because you just said this isn't a matter of your opinion. This is a matter of
Yeah, I think
descriptive
it's okay
reality.
that
And
you're
so I'm
wrong.
not
I
allowed
just
to
would
draw
like
my
to
own
flesh out.
conclusion of the reality that I'm living in.
I think it's okay that
I
I
drew
think
a
you're
different
wrong.
conclusion than you, and now you're saying that I'm wrong, and so I shouldn't have my
Yeah, I'm
opinion.
just interrogating
Yeah,
that conclusion because it seems like absurd to me with all
sure.
due respect.
Yeah, I just disagree with you on this one.
I need a reason for that.
I disagree with you because of what I just explained. I think that if the federal government reaches out in any capacity to any platform and says, I want you to remove the speech of an individual citizen of the United States on that platform, I
Uh-huh.
think that that violates free speech.
Like legally or like the spirit of free speech?
I think it's wrong. I think that the
Well,
administration
that's a
shouldn't be
different
doing that. I
question.
think legality, I mean, yeah, you could get into the legality of these kinds of
Like
things,
we're
but I
talking
think
about the
any
First
American
Amendment to be
president
clear.
who believes in free speech, if they would reach out to any platform and say, this is a citizen of our country, they said this about COVID, they said this about
Yeah.
whatever it is, and say, I want you to remove this because it's misinformation, that is a violation of free speech in my opinion. So that's why I disagree with you.
I'm just trying to
That's my
clarify,
exact
is that a
point. There's no
violation of the
clarifying to
First
do.
Amendment?
I just explained my point. I don't have to answer any more
It's
questions
just a
about it.
very vague point, and I feel like you're being a little bit
It's not very
dishonest.
vague. It's actually very specific. If any administration in the United States at any point
It's just what was the
reaches
violation?
out reaches out to a platform like
Mhm.
a social
I,
media
I, I,
company.
I understand that you've said that like 3 times at this point. I'm just saying, like, is that against
Okay,
the
so
First
what's vague
Amendment?
about it? What is vague about that?
You're not saying if it's against the First Amendment or not.
Yeah, I'm saying I think that it violates or infringes upon the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Yes.
Didn't maybe I'm wrong here? Didn't someone try to take this to court, and the judges were like, this case like doesn't was it standing or evidentiary? Like, what would the court case here be? What's the like? I'm just saying that under any legal scrutiny, there was no free speech violation here. Like
Sure,
this
I
wouldn't
don't
hold up
need
in
a
any
federal
court.
judge, or I don't need a specific entity in the country to tell me whether or not it's a
I know you don't need
infringement
it.
of
I'm
free
just saying in
speech.
terms
It's
of the
very simple. I have a
legitimacy.
brain. I can use my own brain and decide that for myself.
That's fine. I'm just saying in terms of like the legitimacy of the opinion.
Sure, it's legitimate because it's my opinion, and if you don't think it's legitimate, you don't have to think it's legitimate.
Okay, I just wish we could get in. I wish you could like address my criticism instead of just repeating your point. But I guess we can move on.
Well, the fact that a judge has a different opinion on me, I mean, they're looking at the basically the same circumstance that I'm looking at in terms
Yeah.
of the general facts. And if they come to a different conclusion, then they interpret free speech differently than me. So their interpretation of these kinds of things can differ from mine.
I would just
But that doesn't mean that
assume.
my point is any less valid or my point is any less
I
based
would
in
disagree. I would say
reality.
that I'm not just attacking you. I think both of our points are probably less valid than someone who went to law school and studied constitutional law and understands what the First Amendment actually is.
Sure, and that's your opinion. Yeah, that's your opinion.
But everything is everyone's opinion, but we have to have some a form of actually hashing these things out, right?
I mean, I think that the simplest form of hashing it out is to say that I think that free speech covers all speech, even misinformation. I think it covers hate speech. And so
I agree.
I don't think that the federal government, if they are in any way, shape, or form in the business of reaching out to platforms or they themselves reaching out and saying, you can't say this, or we need to have this removed from circulation to where other people can't see it, they are infringing on your free speech.
This
If
is
you
where
don't believe
I
that,
take
then you
issue
just
with
don't
your
really care for
premise.
free speech.
The government expressing an opinion on what they would like to see not on social media, they're not making anyone do anything.
Yeah, but the very nature of expressing their opinion to the platform it's in and of itself kind of like a request. And when you take into an account that the federal government is the one reaching out, there's kind of like a implicit, hey, if you don't do what we want to do, our relationship might be a little bit more difficult. We might be a little bit more difficult with you in our relationship. So even though you're just asking and even though the
Uh-huh.
words don't break any laws, if I use just a little bit of critical thinking, I can come to
Sure.
the conclusion that obviously, even though they're requesting it, there's obviously pressure behind what they're asking. So if
I
you were
just I
to
don't
not
think that that's
comply, for instance,
implied
you could
when
probably
they
anticipate a little bit of issues with them.
I don't think that that's implied when they did reject many requests and the government didn't really change anything about what they were doing.
Sure. And what about the ones that they did accept? Because you keep
Those
saying
were
that half number, but what about the ones that they did accept?
those were probably requests that they felt also violated their own TOS and they didn't want that stuff on their platform, which is their right as a private company. So the government brought it to their attention and they said, okay.
Sure. Okay. That's your opinion.
Yeah, and it feels like a much
Publisher
more well
versus platform.
substantiated
Right back to
opinion.
that point. So if we disagree on that, we're not going to agree on the rest of it.
Okay, I don't understand why we hit this bedrock where you refuse to like engage further, but I guess that's fine. Did you want to debate then the people being arrested for expressing and anti-Israel opinions. Is that okay, or do you think that's bad?
I think that's bad. I think it's terrible. I think that is infringing. That's against free speech, and so I'm completely against that.
Do you think that that's a orders of magnitude bigger violation of free speech than anything Biden ever did?
I don't really think about it in terms of orders of magnitude of free speech. I think that as soon as
Come
free
on,
speech cracks in any sense,
come
like
on.
meaning it's the truth. I think that as soon as absolute free speech doesn't exist, I think that you no longer have free speech. You have limited speech.
I just I don't buy that we're unironically saying that it's the same category of thing. On the one hand, to say, "Hey, Twitter, can you please remove this one tweet about hydroxychloroquine?" versus, "Hey, you're under arrest for expressing opinions." I don't believe that you would honestly say these are in the same category.
I think that you could make the argument that either of them are as bad as the other.
How? Please make that argument.
Sure. So, like, if I were to play devil's advocate and I was going to play both sides here, I would say that cracking down on anti-Israel is this is the worst, right? This is the worst because this is a direct violation. You have people who are protesting, whether it's on a campus or whether it's wherever they're at. They're allowed to say what they want to say. And if they want to say something negative against the state of Israel, they should be allowed to say it. And anybody who would ever throw you in jail or threaten to deport you because of what you said is simply un-American. Okay.
True.
Now, if we went over to the other example, I could say, well, one of the things that makes it particularly egregious with the Biden administration and the Facebook files is that at the time, and this is all obviously speaking 2020, but now we actually can confirm that the majority of the things that they wanted Facebook to censor due to misinformation, some of those things were actually not inaccurate. So it actually did like a public service or a public disservice. So you could actually make the argument that because people were not getting some of the information, that maybe people lost their lives. I think that the other really, really difficult part about this is that the federal government, it's not even just getting into free speech, it's also getting into medical practice because they were censoring and they were taking down posts of people who are accredited doctors. So I think that one of the most egregious things,
like medical facts that were taken down from Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, one of the easy medical facts is that there were things that were working for some people, not that they worked for everybody, but that they did actually work for some people.
Like
I can't remember exactly what the name of the chemical is. I'm not a doctor.
Ivermectin.
It was. I think it was a combination of those and one or two of the other things. But
Sure,
I mean,
like
you can literally
RCTs
find.
showing that those were effective.
Listen, I'm not talking about a specific chemical, but there are other things. I mean, there were people who were saying that the masking doesn't work. They were saying that the social distancing doesn't work. There were people talking about herd immunity and the vaccines and the efficacy of the vaccines. Some of those things ended up being completely accurate. There were people talking about the side effects of the vaccine. Several of those vaccines are actually ended up being pulled due to safety violations. So at the same time that they're pulling people from social media who are saying, so-and-so had an adverse reaction, you shouldn't go get this vaccine, at the exact same time, they're censoring these posts and then they're collecting data and then a week later they're pulling the vaccine.
Give me
So
examples
that's
of
just
these
not good.
posts that are making very benign comments like, "I don't think masks work," and then they get taken down.
And now you're just arguing that none of these posts exist in the first place.
No,
So it's like, it's
I
not
just
really
have a hard time.
conversation.
You're painting a very specific picture that I just don't really buy.
Yeah. So, okay. So do you think that there were people out there who are saying, I think that these vaccines maybe have been sped through the process and I think that they could potentially be dangerous? Do you think any post like that ever got taken down?
I don't think anyone who's anti-vax talks like that. You're talking in such like couched, like, it's my opinion that they were like, fuck the vaccine, they're evil, they're microchips. Like, that's what it was. It was a lot more full-throated with their chest. Like, it wasn't these.
So now you're speaking
opinions.
So you're speaking in absolutes and you're saying this is exactly what it was. And you're saying that what I'm saying didn't occur.
No,
and
I'm asking you for examples
so
of what you're saying occurring, because in my experience, most anti-vax tweets are
Robert Malone was a
cute
pretty
language
easy
like
one.
that.
Yeah, Robert Malone was a pretty easy one. He's a pretty popular doctor on X. I'm not a big follower of the guy, but he was certainly shadow banned and discredited. There was all kinds of stuff against him when he was coming out against the vaccines.
Sure, Robert Malone was like wrong about a lot of the stuff he said, though. So why is that?
Are you a doctor?
No, did I claim to be?
Okay, so what research have you seen that completely disproves what he said?
RCTs on the COVID vaccine and the fact that we've had those vaccines out for years now and none of these side effects that people claim are going to happen, like mass deaths of hundreds of millions of people, that should never ended up happening.
Okay, so you know all of his claims as well. So you follow him?
I didn't say all of his claims are fake. I'm sure he'd claim the sky is blue, and I'd agree with him on that. I'm saying the statements he was making during COVID that were getting media attention, that I'm assuming were under the ire of Twitter. If I take your premise for even being true, I'm assuming these weren't like very medically backed tweets, because everything I've seen from him in that context is calling into question the efficacy of vaccines that were efficacious.
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you believe that government officials are more medically or more inclined to speak on medical issues than doctors, then that's your opinion. I just disagree.
I never made that claim.
Well, he's a doctor, and government officials were speaking against him, saying that he's wrong.
Doctor.
So you get to choose which one you'd like to do.
He's a doctor who has been proven by other more qualified doctors.
So the doctors who came out on, okay, so just think about this.
Yeah.
The doctors who came out and they agreed with the big pharmaceutical companies that are in the revolving door of the FDA with our government, the people who agreed with the people who were at the FDA and who are at these billion-dollar vaccine companies who have liability protections, those people, they were like, hey, these people are heroes. Any of the doctors who had any skepticism at all about the vaccine, those people were labeled anti-science, anti-vaccine. They were shadow banned. Their accounts were deleted. So it's like you can't really play both sides here. You get to either you get to choose one of the side. Either it happened.
Like you're painting a very weird picture where pro-vaccine people were like, "You must get the vaccine," and everyone else was like, "Listen, I just want to have a reasonable conversation about the possible side effects." No, the anti-vax people were talking about 5G towers and microchips and World Economic Forum. You will own nothing and love everything. Like, I don't know if you remember what the right-wing COVID rhetoric was
dude,
like.
Do you really? Okay, let me just ask you this seriously, and let me finish the question before you start responding.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you genuinely, in your heart of hearts, do you seriously believe that every single person who had any hesitation at all to go get the vaccine for COVID-19, do you really genuinely think that every single person who had any issue with that is a 5G tower QAnon conspiracist? That's what you were just basically saying.
No, I was talking about what would have been the subject.
No, but you said everybody on that side was
saying the types of tweets that'd be taken down were probably the crazy 5G shit, and not someone very casually saying. And that's why I asked you for examples. I'm not even making a claim. I'm saying I have a hard time believing it if you have an example of someone tweeting, "Hey man, I don't know about the whole mask thing, but what do I know?" And then their tweet gets taken down by Biden. I'd say, okay, that's pretty bad. I just don't buy that that happened.
Okay, so
I asked you for examples.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get out of the app and then have to be searching around on my phone.
I just feel like you have at least one example if you're making such a hyper-specific claim.
Okay. Well, here, how about we do it this way? This is the easier way to do it. So if somebody posted on Facebook, this is really easy. I mean, this is actually where we can meet in the middle, and I'm trying to find that common ground with you. So if there were, for instance, anybody that posted on Facebook and said, I'm not sure about the vaccine, I'm worried about side effects, I've read things that concern me. If any of those kinds of posts at all were ever taken down or shadow banned, right? Would you agree that that is that goes against the spirit of free speech, and that Facebook and the Biden administration should not have been coordinating and taking down any of those posts if they existed?
Sure.
Great. Okay, so we agree. I just have seen them. I know that they exist. You don't seem to know
I've been a lot more
exist,
intellectually honest than you have in this conversation. That's what's kind of bugging me. Is that
now you're attacking my character after I asked you to find middle ground. So very odd thing to do after I find middle ground to insult me, but that's your
I'm not attacking your character. I'm attacking the way you've engaged in this conversation, and I can explain why I've made that attack. It just, I don't believe that anyone being honest can say that these posts being silenced by a private company allegedly at the behest of Biden is even in the same universe as a man being handcuffed and dragged away from his pregnant wife for saying words. This is like, I don't believe...
You would make the case that one is more extreme than the other, and that's totally fine. I wouldn't really be inclined to disagree with you on that, but I mean, I do think that it does a disservice to my point to sit here and say, well, because that one's worse, this one's really not that bad, and so we should excuse it. I think both are pretty bad, and I think that we should call both out.
I would say they're categorically different things. Only one of those is a First Amendment violation.
That's your opinion, and that's totally okay. I don't think that's an insane opinion. I can see where you're coming from. I just personally disagree with you.
Okay, I just think it's an insane opinion to say that this thing you're saying that Biden did has anything to do with the
Does everyone have to agree with you on everything?
I didn't say that.
Why does it bother you so much that I disagree with you?
This is what I mean about like intellectually dishonest.
It's not intellectually dishonest. I've explained my point. You disagree with me, which is okay.
Recommending things to a private company is a First Amendment issue?
Yeah, the federal government recommending what speech they allow on platforms, that's problematic. Yeah, duh.
I'm not asking if it's problematic. Is it a violation of the First Amendment?
In the spirit of the First Amendment, yeah, in my
The
opinion, it is.
spirit of the first. I just. You not see
Again,
what
now
you're
you
doing
want to
right
argue
now?
the
I feel
legality.
like
That's
you're really
completely
squirming.
acceptable. Yeah, publisher. Okay, if you have the liability protection, sorry, you have to enforce free speech rules. That's how it works. Unless it's a direct call for violence.
No, they have terms of service. It's not how it works.
Yeah, okay, well, your terms of service, if you get the liability protections as a platform, your terms of service cannot preclude free speech because you get liability protections because you're supposed to have free speech. Duh, that's how it works.
Yes, you're saying it's illegal for them to have terms of service on content? That's just not
No,
true.
I'm not saying that it's illegal to have terms of service. I'm just saying that if you use your terms of service to enforce what the federal government wants in terms of censorship of posts, that's not really a terms of service. That's just legal jargon allowing the federal government to censor people.
You understand the federal government is saying, hey, this violates your terms of service. That's what these requests were.
Okay, yeah. So if the federal government is in the business of policing Facebook posts for violating their terms of service, we have a pretty big issue.
It's not policing, though.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go. Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, so what you just said, right? If we want to roll back the clip, we can roll it back. So if the federal government is pointing out to Facebook executives that specific posts that they've seen violate Facebook's term of service, would you consider that policing or no?
I'd consider they're requesting something.
Again, yeah, exactly. You won't say the word, you won't concede it, even though I'm completely fair here and I'm completely right.
No one's
you're just
facing
begging to
legal
disagree to disagree.
consequences.
Yeah. Okay.
What does policing mean to you? Just asking someone, pretty please take down this tweet is policing?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Again, I mean, have you read the emails? Should we pull up the emails and go through them?
You want to go through every single email from the Twitter files?
Have you read them?
I read them when this first happened. Yeah. What was Matt Taibbi and those people, right? Yeah.
God, okay, so you read them and nothing really stuck out as
you keep strawmanning me. This is why I'm saying you're being intellectually dishonest.
No, I just asked you a question. That's not a straw man.
You're saying I said nothing stuck out, no problem. I'm not asking if it's a problem.
I didn't say that. I said, so you read them and nothing stuck out?
From the beginning of this conversation, the question has been the First Amendment. Legal violation of the First Amendment. And every time I try to corner you on, like, was this a legal violation of the First Amendment, I don't get an answer from you. I get it's the spirit, it's a problem. Like...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a complex answer because I think that it ultimately goes back to the platform be publisher.
I didn't say that to you when you asked me if there was an example of this, would it be wrong? I unequivocally said yes. This is why I think you're not being as good faith as I'm being, right? That's my issue here, is you just can't say that very obvious, not controversial thing, and you're not giving me a reason as to why.
It's not, what do you mean say that very obvious, non-controversial?
That's just like extremely disingenuous. You can say that you don't like the government-made requests. It's not a legal First Amendment violation.